let's go. Break it down, put it there, bring it on, step it up. Right there, break it down, put it there. Here we go, step it up, bring it on, let's go.
Good evening, it's 8 o'clock and we're going to start this next edition of Studium Generale of the Eindhoven University of Technology. And tonight we're going to discuss why engineers should care about economics. And we're going to discuss this with three experts that we've invited. Those are Coen Teulings, Ioulia Ossokina and Maarten Steinbuch. But before we are going to turn to them, I want to ask you, viewer, ask you a few questions, and we're going to do so through Mentimeter. And you can see in the chat in YouTube and Facebook the code that you can use to enter our Mentimeter. You go to menti.com and you enter the code 1503398. And we would like to hear from you. What do you consider yourself to be? I am A, and you have several options. I'm a student at the TUE. I'm a student at another university. I'm employed at the TUE. I'm an economist. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm other. I'm something else. At least not one of the above. And you can also enter multiple answers. So who's in our audience? We are very curious to find out. So we know who we're going to deal with tonight. So most of you, I see, are students at the TUE. That is nice. It's good to see. Oh, look at that. Other answers are coming in. So there are some employees of the TUE, some entrepreneurs, and also students of other institutions. Well, of course, everyone is as welcome as everybody else. There is a big majority of students of this university, I see. So let's turn to the next question, because tonight we're going to talk about technology and economics. And we would like to know from you, how do you feel? What applies to you? I know a lot about economics. I know a lot about technology and not so much economics. I know a lot about both, or I don't know much about both, but I do know other things. I'm a great cook, or I'm an artist, or name it. What do you consider yourself to be? Someone who knows a lot about the one or the other? I mean, I can imagine that many people do think they know a lot about technology, as we are at the TUE, but it isn't necessarily so. Look at that. Many people know about economics and technology. Little bit more people consider themselves as someone who knows about technology, not so much economics. And there are also some others. 5 people don't know much about both. Well, I think that you're at the right address tonight. The key question that we are going to talk about tonight is whether or not an engineer should know about economics. So what do you think about this statement? Knowing about economics is essential for a successful career in tech. Do you agree or do you disagree? How do you feel about this statement? Should you know about economics to become a successful career, tech career? Many people agree, though some of you disagree. It's a majority, a big majority who do agree. So it's interesting because, well, we saw that not everybody considered themselves to be, well, knowledgeable about economics. So there's a lot to learn, and that's great because that's also why we're here, of course. So finally, how would you describe economics? What do you associate with economics? Can you describe it in one word? You can enter multiple answers, and they will all show up in this word cloud. It takes a while to process all your answers, of course, and everything is good. You know, there's no good or bad. We just want to know, what is your idea of what economics is? I see money, stock market, salary, rules and regulations, demand. Money is growing, is bigger than the other words. Common sense. Economics is common sense. You don't need to study economics. It's common sense. There's a lot changing in this word cloud. So you are entering, submitting answers. Allocation. Politics. Economics is politics. Yeah, why not? Demand. Supply. Well, I guess they are related. Funding. Well, our first guest, I'm really curious to find out what he thinks about your answers, and I'm going to introduce him now, is Coen Teulings. He is distinguished professor at the Utrecht University. Good evening, Coen.
Good evening. Good evening.
And you are also a member of the supervisory board of the TUE. That's worth mentioning tonight. And you saw the answers of the audience. What do you make of that?
Well, it's interesting. There are at least 16 people who listen to this talk, though they really think that they don't need to know about economics. So I'm curious what motivated them to listen to my talk. That's the first thing. And the other thing is that I made a very serious mistake in preparing my talk, because I should have started with that famous ABBA song, Money, Money, Make the World Go Round. I understand that that's what is economics, and I guess that that's what makes the world go round.
Right.
So that's
well,
what
maybe
I mean.
next time. Okay, well, thank you. The floor is yours.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I think I have to share something, and I have to I hope you see now my screen. So I'm going to talk about economics and engineers. What do engineers have to know about economics, and what do you need to know about economics if you want to make a career in technology? And at the same time, I'm going to use this platform to say something about the TU Eindhoven. And I try to think to broadcast a message that TU Eindhoven should be very ambitious, because they are well placed to do so. So let me start thinking about technology. And here is an example, a century-old example of a major innovation that changed history, the T-Ford. I think the first car was finished around 1910 or something like that, the time. And this is a perfect model of innovation. Let me stop here my presentation for a second and ask you the question, what do you see? What is this car? What is the first thing that you should observe about this car? Okay, now, I hope you thought a bit. The first thing somebody pointed out to me here is what you see is a carriage. It's just a carriage, a horse carriage. The only thing that changed was to replace the horses by an engine. But otherwise, the whole design is exactly as if you have a carriage. And so what you see here is that this innovation is incomplete. Only 10 years later, General Motors completely changed the image of a car. This model of a car is only the car of 1910. 1920, you had completely different cars. The Chryslers, the Chevrolets, they all came in and they looked completely different. They didn't look like a carriage anymore. No horses, no engine at the place of a horse, just a completely different outlook. And so you can expect that similar things are going to happen in one other very important innovation, which basically extends Henry Ford's T-Ford. Here you have self-driving cars, and on the left picture you see something like the old model of a self-driving car. That is, you sit on the driver's seat, you sit in the driver's seat, but you're reading a book. You no longer have to take care of the steering wheel. The steering wheel, the car drives itself. But the question obviously is, like with the carriage, the T-Ford as a carriage, why would you design a car like this, where there is a driver sitting behind the wheel? And then in the right picture, you see the evolution of that self-driving car a couple of years later. We understand now that when we're no longer driving, we're no longer steering this car, that there's no need for us to look forward. We can look to each other. We can put a table in the middle and we can do whatever we like. And we can remove the steering wheel. Maybe there's somewhere in a corner for if the self-driving concept breaks down. And this is typical for what innovations are. Innovation is not a single thing, it's a whole collection of little inventions which all fit together to make a new technology workable and really get the best out of it. So, for example, from 1910 onwards, when the Niagara Falls power plant was opened, electricity became available in the state of New York, and they used that for complete transformation of manufacturing processes. And everybody agglomerated in New York to think about all those things, how you could do that, how you could use electricity to make a completely revolutionary new concept of a factory. And so agglomeration of people at one location where they benefit from each other's ideas, that is critical for innovation. It's the interaction of ideas, it's the interaction of disciplines. Many disciplines contribute. It is not only a real technical hardcore person who makes the batteries for this self-driving car, probably electric, but it's also the person who thinks about how we can make an agreeable environment within the car, where we can use maximum advantage of the new concept of self-driving, and hence we can use our time for all different kinds of activities. So we need agglomeration of ideas, people sitting together. That's the driving force of revolutionary transitions, new general purpose technologies. And so this brings me to the internet paradox. So the right screen is by Bloomberg. It is a picture of the City Hall in New York. And so Bloomberg ideas when he was mayor of New York was that you should bring people together. No longer separate office spaces, but we should all put everybody in one room. Most of us would dislike it. But his idea was that it would favor the interaction between people. Because there is something very strange going on. Let's say 30 years ago, when electronic communications was making large progress, people thought about the death of the city. They talked about the death of the city. If we can communicate so easily by telephone, telegraph, email, whatever, why would we have to sit together? We can't sit in somewhere in Drenthe on the countryside and communicate all over the world. Why do we need to be in San Francisco or in Eindhoven for that matter? We can be anywhere. And that turned out to be wrong. Because at the same time, cities flourished all over the world. Eindhoven flourished, Amsterdam flourished, New York, Barcelona, Paris, London. All those cities, many of them having been in decline for several decades, they flourished because email turned out to be no substitute for proximity. If you really want to cooperate and work on new ideas, new technologies, you need to sit close together. And so that was the main revolution. That was the strange thing that economists found out. And so here you see that in a map of the US, 2 maps for the US, you see that documented. On the left panel, you see states and cities within states. And the darker the color, the higher the average wage, controlling for your human capital, so controlling for your levels of education. So if you are, for example, you have 10 years of education and you work at a dark place like San Francisco or Washington or New York, or more in the center of the country, Denver, then you see that you earn much higher wages. And the right picture is the picture where you see where the average number of higher educated workers is the highest. And you see that's in more or less the same places as where people earn high wages. So San Francisco both have the highest average education level and the highest average wage controlling for your education level. So apparently people benefit from the proximity of other people with good education. You're more productive, you contribute more to national welfare if you are surrounded by many higher educated people. So that's what we call agglomeration benefits. And those agglomeration benefits have been carefully measured over the course of the past 3 decades, and they turn out to be huge. And so they play a very important role. For example, let me point to you on the left, on the right picture. In the center, you see one state which is more dark than the other states. It's Kansas, and that city in the middle is Denver. And if you remember the map of states that voted for Trump and voted for Biden, Kansas was a blue state. And that's remarkable because in the center of the country, most states were red states. They voted for Trump. But this single state, Colorado, turned to be an island in that huge red plain in the middle of the country. And why was it an island? Because so many higher educated worked there. So there seems to be something like a correlation between voting for Trump and not being in a hotspot of innovation. And on the other hand, voting for Biden and being in such a hotspot, whether it's California, whether it's Kansas, or whether it's Massachusetts or New York. And the same picture repeats itself if you look at the Netherlands. The left picture, is a picture of land prices. The more blue, the lower the land prices. So land prices in the northeastern part of Groningen, the darkest blue part of the Netherlands, are very low. And the red purple in Amsterdam is clearly the highest land prices. So you see clearly where are the big cities. There things are orange or even red. And where is the more less intensely used and less attractive places, there it's dark blue. And you see the picture on the right side, you see education levels. You see a very clear correlation that the red spots in land prices are also the red spots in education levels. Higher educated, they cluster in cities, and those cities become attractive because so many higher educated are there. So there is a big challenge. If Eindhoven or you want to be really successful, let's first do Eindhoven. What has Eindhoven has to do? It has to make sure that the TU Eindhoven brings together all kinds of very well-trained students, which can benefit then from each other and make Eindhoven a very flourishing place. And you as an individual student, having studied at this great university, this great technical university, for you it is critical, if you want to make a successful career in technology, to seek an environment, a university or a company, which has a very well-trained workforce, so that you can be member of an excellent team. Because your own productivity depends critically on the ideas of your colleagues, on the quality of your colleagues. And so clustering, agglomeration of high talent people is critical for a high-tech environment, for the conception of new ideas. Now, a shining example of agglomeration benefits is clearly this picture of Google, it might be somewhere in the proximity of San Francisco, in the San Francisco urban agglomeration. And here we see another shining example. And that's our city, Eindhoven. And Eindhoven was in some sense very interesting. When Philips left Eindhoven, decided to move from Eindhoven to Amsterdam, somewhere in the beginning of the 90s, that was a deliberate decision. And given the theory that I set out to you regarding the importance of agglomeration, it was in some sense understandable decision by the top management of Philips to move its main activities, its headquarters to Amsterdam. Because in Amsterdam, everything was going on. You should be in Amsterdam to be a headquarter. And so Eindhoven was left with the bad damage. But the strange thing, the remarkable thing is that Eindhoven was able to recoup. And now it is again a very flourishing city due to companies like ASML and NXP. They are really very important for fostering this climate of innovation in Eindhoven. And the TU Eindhoven also contributes a lot. Worldwide, it's always the same. Successful cities drive on successful universities. Those two really reinforce each other. And you can understand. The university introduces you and all new ideas start going around in the world. And that might be the filter ground for new innovations in the next 10 years. The university brings together all those people. And hence a company like ASML is very well positioned in Eindhoven. Because it can work with the university, it can work with professors there. And also there are many good students available that after finishing their studies at the university can easily switch to ASML. Though ASML not only uses Eindhoven students, it wants to get ideas from all over the world. And hence ASML is a place where students come from all over the place. Okay. Now there is one issue in the Netherlands or in Europe in general, which is very remarkable. This is a list of the top 20 and the top 40 universities in the world. Now, before I spoke about the importance of a top university for a city. If a city really wants to be in the front line of technology, wants to be one of those 20 hotspots in the world, where most of the new technologies come from. Part of those hotspots most of them being in the US, some of them being in India, some of them being in China. China is catching up really quickly, but also some of them are in Europe. But if you look at this list of universities, then there's something very remarkable. Of the top 20 universities, 16 are in the US, 3 are in the UK, 1 is in Switzerland, and none is in the EU after Brexit, because then the 3 UK universities leave the EU. And even if you extend that to the top 40 universities, 27 are in the United States, more than 2/3. 6 are in the UK. UK is doing really very well. 1 is in Switzerland, and then we have 2 in the EU. So the EU is in some sense a place that is lagging behind in the field of top university education. And so what is typical for the industry of technology, for technological innovation? That it is an industry which is characterized by the law of the winner takes all. If your technology is 10% less efficient than the technology of your competitor in another country, that may not be that big a problem, because you always can pay 10% lower wages. But if your technology, your new invention is not as good as the invention of your neighbor, then you earn nothing. Because your neighbor has the best technology, and any firm that buys technology will buy the best, because that gives the best prospect for competition. And so your neighbor is able to sell a lot, to patent his technology all over the world, and you earn nothing. So being on the top is critical for the EU. And in that sense, this ranking, the Shanghai ranking, is very disputable. Is a very bad news for the EU. Now, clearly, those rankings, you can debate them, but they broadcast a very important message. The EU should catch up. Now, my view, using some evidence on citations and the like, is that the TU Eindhoven is very well positioned to play a leading role in technology development. It doesn't come out of the Shanghai ranking, but that's because it is ranked as a technical university. But TU Eindhoven is very well positioned as a hotspot of innovation. But that requires, and those are my final slides, I do them very quickly.
Okay.
That we are prepared to really go for the top at this university, to select the best students, to prepare to play top sport. If we can do that, here's a trend, and you see, let me do this idea here. You see universities, how universities select students in 1967 and in 2013. You see in 2013, basically all universities had more or less the same quality students. In 2013, you see that universities heavily select the best university, also attract the best students. And so that's, I think, a very important message for the TU Eindhoven. I think it's well positioned to excel, but then it really has to be also to start a climate. We want to do top sport. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Koen. There's no way we can applaud for you now because everybody is at distance. But I will do so for them. Thank you very much. I want to point out to the audience that they can ask you questions to you and to the other experts as well. And you can do so in the chat in YouTube and Facebook. And then I will try to put them forward to our guests, but I make no promises because if there are many questions, there's not enough time. I can tell you up front. I wanted to, what I was thinking is you say the agglomeration benefit depends highly on where the people are, and is there also an agglomeration benefit of where? Well, of infrastructure, technological infrastructure is, for example, where the fiber network is optimal, for example.
This is a very well taken question, but it's also very difficult to answer because here we have something the chicken and the egg. We don't know exactly why what is first, the infrastructure or the people. So one very important piece of infrastructure is railways, because if you want to bring together a lot of people at one location, the car is not going to do that. It's very inefficient in the sense it uses a lot of land. So the location of TU Eindhoven, close to the Eindhoven Central Station, is very important. And you can see that if you walk on the campus, you see the flow of people walking from the station to the university back and forth. That's very important. Obviously, the same for IT infrastructure, for labs and things like that. They're very important. And the one attracts the other and the other attracts the one. So what is chicken and what is egg? I don't know.
But the benefit is there.
The benefit is there, no doubt.
Yes. So we've got a question from the audience and someone says, can we assume that agglomeration benefit is one of the reasons of brain drain?
Yeah, that's clear. So what I showed you, that picture of the Netherlands, where we thought that, let's say, along the border with Groningen, on the border with Germany, very, on average, very low educated parts of the Netherlands. That's clearly an issue of brain drain. If you are smart, you go to university and you never go back there. So there is, and the same with between countries. So we see that, like in the US, in the US it has happened in the 50s and in the 60s. It's happening now in Europe that there is an EU-wide market for higher education. And we see people, smart people from Romania and Bulgaria, they know there's no prospect for them there. and hence they come to countries like the Netherlands. So it's really brain drain. That's true. There's no way around that. That's what technology is. Bring the good people together.
And is that also what other universities are doing? So is that also why maybe there's no European university at the Shanghai ratings?
Well, what you see currently is very interesting to look at Dutch universities. So we all know that a large part of the students at Dutch universities, now 1 out of 6, something like that, that's the order of magnitude, are from outside our country. And many of them are from within Europe. So apparently the Netherlands is very popular among foreign students. So my claim is we have seen in the US that gradually there are 2 states which attract most of the top students, California on the one side and Massachusetts on the other side. So the Netherlands has a good chance to become the Massachusetts of the EU or the California of the EU for that matter. So I think we can do. And clearly that is, you might think that's bad for other parts, but that's the way technology works.
Right. Final question for this moment is there an advantage of privatized education?
Let me share the thing and look at this slide. And you see here that on the left, on the right panel, you see in the uppermost, so in the north east part, the most selective, all non-profit. So if you look at the most selective, the best universities, which select the best students, they're all non-profit. And so now I'm here I am again. So they are all non-profit, and that is critical because if you really go for profit, they're all there's fierce competition between universities. But if a university has the reputation of doing it for the money, it will never work. So they compete. We want to hire the best professors. We want to hire the best students. And we are going to do the best research and contribute to most to the world's whatever. That's very competitive, but is the goal to make profit? It's not going to work. So it's non-profit, but private. It's a private but non-profit business.
Okay, thank you for this moment, Coen. I want to introduce our next expert, and her name is Ioulia Ossokina, and she's assistant professor at the TUE in housing research and modeling. And the next 10 minutes are yours, Ioulia. Are you ready?
Thank you very much, Lisa. I have shared my slides. Yes, I see them. Well, thank you for the invitation. I'm very glad to be here, part of this discussion about why engineers should care about economics. And as Lisa introduced me, I'm Ioulia Ossokina. I'm an urban economist, and I'm teaching economics to engineers at the Faculty of the Built Environment. What I'm going to tell you here are a couple of real-life examples about how technology affects economy, society, and also how economic models can be used to anticipate on those consequences. So I want you to remember 3 things after hearing my talk. One is economics studies people's behavior using mathematical models and big data. So mathematics is very important for economics. Then the second one is technology. Technology affects people's behavior, and then the results, the consequences, they can be unexpected. And the third one, economic models can be used to anticipate, predict those issues, societal issues. So let's move further and go to the examples of how technology affects economy. So on the left-hand side are 2 maps of the Netherlands, and I want you to go with me back, 60 years back, to 1959. Then the Netherlands had just a few highways, and new highways were being built. The idea, the goal, was to connect cities and make them more productive. What happened also is that people saw that traveling becomes much faster. So you could travel twice as fast as before. And richer people started leaving the downtowns. So downtowns lost a lot of financially strong population. And they had to tackle this. That was not easy. This all came through the behavioral adjustments of people. Another example, on the right-hand side, it's about automation. Computers took routine tasks in the end of the last century, beginning of this century. And we know that when things are automated, then people lose jobs because machines take over jobs. And normally, usually, these are low-skilled jobs which go first. However, in this situation, the middle-class people lost their jobs. How did it happen? Well, when computers take routine tasks, then people who are highly skilled can use the computers. They become much more productive and get higher salaries. So they can buy more services. And they need a waiter in the restaurant, a cleaning lady at home. All these are low-skilled jobs. So the demand for low-skilled went up. Unforeseen, unexpected. What I'm going to do now is to show you how economic models can be used to predict such consequences of technological innovations. And then I will be talking about scenarios. So we can't predict really, but we can build scenarios, possible developments for the future. And I will be talking about the consequences of the automated driving. So this is a research which was done together with Coen Teulings, also here, and George Geloof. And the party who asked for this research was the Ministry of Transportation. So they wanted to know whether people would leave the downtowns after automated driving enters the market, just as they did with the highways. Well, what happens here is indeed that when you drive in a self-driving car, you don't have to watch the highway, so it's much more relaxed. Longer drives, longer commutes may become more comfortable, so people can choose living further from the work in the city. However, this is not the only force that is in play. Also, the public transit can become automated. And then on the right, you see the SkyTran. This is a new development which is being tested at the moment, I think in Israel. And these are one-person vehicles which bring you highly automated without the driver from your home to your destination. So you don't have to change, you don't have to wait. You go from A to B quickly. It's clean and efficient and also cheap because there is no driver. But this one, just as, for example, railways, needs a high density of the population. And for that reason, it can be feasible in cities, but not outside. Why is it so? Well, to build all the infrastructure, so the pillars and the tracks, that costs a lot of money. And then to make it pay back, you need to have a high density. So in cities, the public transit can become automated, cheap and quick, but not outside. And that means that cities bringing people very quickly from A to B together, they can become more attractive and attract population. So you have two forces which are opposite. And the nice thing of the economic models is that we can figure out which force wins. And that is what we did. So here you see how the economic model which we used works. In economics, we assume that people have utility. Utility is a satisfaction, in this particular case, from living somewhere. So people choose from different locations, for example, Eindhoven, Rotterdam, but also some non-urban villages. And then they compare the utility that living there brings them. What is utility? What is satisfaction? Well, it's a combination of different attributes, like, for example, the wage you can get, the amenities like green, restaurants, bars, good schools, but also the housing prices and the travel time and costs to your work and also to amenities. And then housing prices and travel time, it influences utility negatively, and high wages, good amenities influence utility positively. For those who like formulae, below you see that this can be written like a formula, and then if you know for each location what are the amenities, what are the housing prices, and you know the parameters, the A, R, W, so the utility weights, you can calculate utility of different locations, compare, and then predict where people choose to live. Of course, it's very important to be able to know those utility weights. And it is possible to derive them. It is not easy, but this is also what economics does. Economics, econometrics, you can use big data, in this case, millions of trip records and 7.5 million people, data about them, to derive how much people value amenities, how much the housing prices affect utility. And then if we know those parameters from big data, we can do simulations. So we can predict where people live in the current situation, and that should be more or less the current distribution across the country. And we can try to calculate numerically where they move after the automated driving enters the market. So let's see how this works. In the model, there are people making choices. So I will tell about two of them, both characters from the Harry Potter book. So we have Harry and Ginny. Harry used to live and work in The Hague, and then the private automated cars, longer commutes becoming comfortable, become available. So he moves to Bergen op Zoom, a smaller town, West Brabant. Now he commutes, but it's okay in the self-driving car. If we put together all the Harrys, then we get the picture on the right-hand side where blue is population loss and red is population growth. So cities, urban areas are losing population to the non-urban areas. And the opposite is happening with the automated public transit. So here we have Ginny, who lived and worked in Bergen op Zoom, but moves now to The Hague. And she can enjoy the amenities of the city, which is also clean and has very quick transportation, automated public transit. And then cities attract population. The nice thing of the economic modeling is that we can numerically calculate what the outcome will be. And this is the result. So what we got is that in the Randstad, the area which has already very large cities, so a lot of massa of people, high density, there the public transit automation wins. So people come to the cities. While other areas, more isolated cities, they lose population. There the automated private vehicles are more important. And then following from this, we can think about societal issues. So for example, one thing that comes up are the superstar cities. Amsterdam at the moment is already very expensive. So it's very difficult for middle class people to buy a house there. If this scenario of ours comes true, then Amsterdam will become even more expensive, even more exclusive. Do we want this as a society? Another thing is health. So automated transit brings people from the bike to the SkyTram. This has health effects. What do we think about this? This is an illustration of how economic models can be used to think about societal effects of new technologies. And these societal effects can be unforeseen because people respond. They change their behavior when technology comes up. An interesting question is what to do with the outcomes. So we have derived those societal issues. What should we do? Should we prepare ourselves, think about how to mitigate those negative health effects? Or should we take another way? Should we think about steering the technology in the direction which prevents these societal issues? And this is a discussion which is now going on in economics very much. And this is also a discussion which we, I think, will proceed with in the Q&A and the discussion part. So at this moment, I would like to thank you very much for listening and give the word back to Lisa.
Well, thank you, Ioulia, for your presentation and interesting stream of thought now. One thing that I was wondering is, what's the influence of societal change? Like, well, no one can deny now that we have there's something like Corona, and it has a big influence also on all people working at home. How is that? Is that also incorporated in this model in particular, for example? Can you model it?
Yes, it's a very interesting question. So like Coen already introduced, there is something like agglomeration benefits, so things that make cities attractive, but there are also agglomeration costs. And the interplay between the two has been there during the whole history, actually. So the agglomeration costs are, for example, traffic congestion, contagious diseases, which are more dangerous when people are very close together, but also the higher housing prices. So in the years 60 of the last century, when the highways came, then there was an urban crisis. Cities were losing population, then they got their strength back. It could be very well that we are now at the edge of another urban crisis. Actually, it's very difficult to tell, of course. My message is that economic models can help think about those ideas, and it's very important to think in scenarios. So calculate numerically possible developments in different scenarios, and then try to make up policies which would fit and accommodate the societal issues that arise. So it's more a methodological answer, I think, to your question, but this is what I think is a good way to do. So we should think about those developments and think together, think numerically, and economic models can help.
So just to be prepared for the possible future.
Yes, I worked for 13 years at the Centraal Planbureau, CPB, the Netherlands Bureau of Economic Policy Analysis. And there, each 10 years, we made new scenarios for the economic development. And these scenarios were used by authorities, so for example, municipalities, but also ministries, when thinking about policies. Be prepared is a good, I think is a good one. Anticipate the developments. Think about possible responses. And these responses, and this is what interests me very much, can be either accommodating what's happening or trying to steer, and both have benefits and costs. And it's a good discussion. It's a good discussion also, I think, for engineers to be aware of the societal issues, so negative societal effects that technology can bring about, and also ways how to deal with that.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I would like to continue to another Mentimeter question that we have for our audience. And I'm also curious what you think about the following statement. So for everybody in the audience, you can go to menti.com and use the code 1503398, and you can answer the statement that is put up there. Technological innovations should always be tested on their economic consequences. So if there's a new technological innovation, before you can, well, offer it to the market, you have to make sure that you know what the economical consequences will be. What's your opinion about that? Do you agree or do you disagree? There's at this moment, answers are coming in, and slight advantage for the people who agree with it. Before you can do anything with your innovation, you have to test the economic consequences. Ioulia, is that possible at all?
Well, I think the whole idea of my talk was about this. I think it's very important for engineers not only to think about nice new technologies, but also be aware of the consequences for the society that a technology can bring about. And I'm glad to see that 2/3 of the people, they agree with this. And then the question is, of course, how can you know how to calculate those consequences? And it's possible to read books, but it's also possible to follow courses. So luckily, our university offers also economic courses for students.
Aha, that's good to hear, because a large part of our audience is a student at this university. So I will get back to that point with you later in the closing. And for now, I would like to thank you very much, and we'll see each other in a bit. But I want to go to another Mentimeter question, another statement, and that statement is: artificial intelligence is a threat to our jobs. Artificial intelligence is a threat to our jobs. What do you think? Do you agree or do you disagree? Will artificial intelligence take over and there will be hardly any jobs left? Or are there still humans needed in the future? And I want to propose this statement also to our next guest. So while you are entering your answers, I want to invite Maarten Steinbuch to the fore. Good evening, Maarten.
Hi, Lisa.
You are a distinguished university professor in systems and control at the TUE, and I was told a serial tech entrepreneur. So if there's any technician, any engineer who knows about economics, it must be you, isn't it?
Well, at least it was very important for me already from the start of my professional career, and also even during my studies. I remember I bought stock options when I was, I think, 28 or so. I cannot say that I earned much money with doing things in stocks, but you are aware of that other world which is out there, outside university, outside engineering, which in some sense is also good that you know about as an engineer. Yes.
Okay. Well, let's turn to the question that we put up for the audience. Artificial intelligence is a threat to our jobs, and well, 2/3 disagrees and 1/3 agrees with this statement. And what's your take on this?
Well, I think jobs will change due to artificial intelligence, and that's good. I think we should be flexible and agile, and we should not stick to the thinking about the job now in being the same job 20 years from now. We all love our smartphones. We enjoy our PCs. So there is technological progress, and the thing we should do as engineers is to help to use that technology to solve the real societal problems like water, health, climate. And we should not be afraid of new things coming up, because for that reason we are basically educated engineers. We are creative inventors.
So you say jobs are not gone; they are just going to be different.
Different, yes, sure. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. The floor is yours. Next 10 minutes are totally for you.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. Yeah, a few first remarks. So the whole theme of the evening is why engineers should care about economics. And I think one of the basic thing is that as an engineer, we try to solve problems. And in solving problems, you don't do that just because it's fun. It should be fun, by the way, but you also do that to try to solve a problem. Now, if you try to solve a real problem, there should be a business case, because otherwise your solution will not work in practice. And for that reason, it is very important that we are conscious about the business case behind the things we invent, but not at a too early stage, because that can also kill our creativity and our innovative drive. I want to put, that's the good thing if you are the third speaker, I want to put a few things as remarks on top of what Coen and Ioulia told us. So Coen stated we should select at the gate. I do not agree with him. I think we should be happy with the fact that if you have a good mark, a sufficiently good mark at the high school, that you can actually enter our university and that there is not a crude selection process. And no, we are not number one in, not even number 15 in the Shanghai ranking, but we are number one on the list of how universities cooperate with industry. And I think for the next decades or so, this ranking is much more relevant than the Shanghai ranking in itself. Although I agree completely with Coen that it all has to do with quality and having enough people close together. And in this respect, I'm with him really happy that I'm working in the Brainport region and that he visits now and then our Brainport region, being in the supervisory board of our university. And Ioulia, I really like the talk of Ioulia because it's about modeling, and modeling is what we do every day as engineers also. She's talking about economic modeling, and in fact what she's doing is known as also econometrics. So it's the quantitative side of economics, and basically that's very close to my own field, which is systems and control. And what we try to do is to describe the dynamic behavior of hardware, of systems, including embedded software. So prediction and modeling is key for us, and data analysis and identification and parameter estimation, and all those known things and all the methods we have been developing are very similar to the modeling techniques they use in an econometric modeling. However, with the models Ioulia presented, you have to be careful a little bit, because these models have been based on assumptions in a world where there are not yet autonomous cars. And if there are autonomous cars, there might be a different model structure describing the situation better, or the weighting factors, in fact, might change. So I don't see yet how you can actually use the data from now as an identification of the parameters in a model for something which can happen in 20 years from now. I already mentioned engineering is also about fun. So I propose we start with my first video I want to share with you.
Proberen het waar te maken. Van der Tandwiel. Van der Tandwiel gaat proberen Robodinho aan te spelen. Robodinho biedt zich aan. Zhongyi opletten. Zhongyi let helemaal niet op. Wat zeg ik? Robodinho aan de bal. En dan gaan ze proberen hier weer in de aanval. En dan is het, ja, heel goed. En nou draaien. Open doel. Robodinho. Oh, Van der Tandwiel. Van der Tandwiel. Van der Tandwiel probeert 3 man verdediging langs. 1 man, 2 man kwijt. Nu nog eentje. Van der Tandwiel. Ja! Van der Tandwiel! Ja, 2-2! Met nog maar 5 seconden op de klok. 2-2!
Yeah, these were the World Championships in soccer playing robots in 2013. We organized it then in Eindhoven. Maybe one of the listeners, viewers, was also there in the audience. It was amazing. With 5,000 parents, grandparents, children, we were looking at a bunch of autonomous driving robots. And basically these machines are completely autonomous, like autonomous cars. They use a sort of an early version of artificial intelligence to learn a little bit from the game, but most of it was pre-programmed. But they could in fact react on what they saw at the moment. So it was, the trajectories were not pre-programmed. There were rules for how they should behave. What I really like about this video is the fact that 5,000 people can watch to such a game and go out of there. We were so happy that we made this goal. In fact, we are still world champion in soccer playing robots. We are the #1 in the world with our soccer playing robots. So you don't need a high Shanghai ranking to be top. What is interesting is that this was a game. And of course, we have a whole team of students and employees who are working on this. And has this also value for the society? Well, maybe take a look at the next video. And I will talk a little bit. What we did in a European project was we took the knowledge we obtained from the soccer playing robots and we put it underneath a hospital bed. Why? Because we already know that we will have a huge shortage in people, in care and cure, in hospitals and in care homes. It's already now the case with Corona that we have a huge problem with people, professionals helping us, helping the sick people. And so technology can help here. And of course, yes, there will be less jobs, but yes, we are happy with that because we don't have the people to fulfill the job. So this is where we now currently are thinking, okay, what is the business model around behind this? Can we actually develop this further? This platform of our soccer playing robot, can we make a startup? Is there a business model? Who's going to pay? And then you have to start economically. And you don't do that on your own as engineers. You connect to people who know much more about that, of course, people who understand about sales and marketing and making business plans. And together you form a new team and you try to put this into the market. And it's very rewarding if that works. So I have started a few companies out of my group on eye surgery robots, for instance, and microsurgery and brain robotics. So thinking about autonomous robots, I also like the next video, which is by a student team from ETH Zurich. And this is a Formula student racing team, a racing car, and there is no driver in it. So this is a fully autonomous racing car, and it is driving very slowly. And what you can see in the picture is that it learns while driving. So it's very slowly driving, and it learns its sensor information. And at a certain moment, it is done learning. And please look what is going to happen then. And we can have a little bit higher volume now. So it did hit some pilot. Please turn the volume a little bit down now. What you can see is after learning, this car drives amazingly fast, amazingly accurate. We can never beat this by a human. What this shows is the power of artificial intelligence and the power of learning mechanisms and the power of sensor technology and technology. Can we use this? Yes, we should use this for our society in all applications where we actually can use it. Is this then showing that we will have autonomous driving in a few years from now all around us? No, by far. This is a very predetermined route on the place there, on the parking lot. It is very defined, like the soccer playing robots. It's a very defined environment. And imagine that a car is autonomous and should take an intersection in the inner city of Eindhoven or Amsterdam with all people around them, not hesitating to cross the road, while in fact it is not allowed by the rulings of the rules of the traffic. So autonomous driving is far from being there, but it will come maybe in the end in 20 years from now. I think it will start at the highways. Having said that, I think I agree with Ioulia that if there are more autonomous functions, it is not relevant anymore that you are in a traffic jam because you can work in your car. That means that I think that the cities will empty, like in half of the model of Ioulia, and that I think that living in more rural areas will help you to have the quality of life you like to have. But for your work, at least half of the week, I expect after COVID, we will be in the cities working together, because I'm very happy with the statement of Coen. Co-location is key. That's also one of the things I like to mention at the end, that in order to boost innovation in the Brainport region, we took the initiative to be founders of the Eindhoven Engine, which is a place where we bring together people from academia, from Fontis, from TNO, from knowledge institutes, and people from industry to work together on projects in teams in a co-location where we actually also influence the other teams by telling and exploring the things across projects. And I'm excited about this new adventure we are developing. And you will certainly hear in the future more about it. And if there are students here looking for a traineeship, please contact me or contact us at Eindhoven Engine, because we have about now 16 projects, very diverse projects on healthcare and climate and smart cities. And we can use a lot of help from creative young people. So, concluding, I think economy is important. That does not mean that half of our curriculum should be about economy, but in the end, we want to have impact in society. As students and engineers, we want to have impact in the things we invent. And impact means that there should be a business case. Otherwise, there will not be make use of that. So with that, I end my small talk and I'm open for questions.
Well, thank you, Maarten. That was very interesting to see and very fun as well. I could imagine a competition between Max Verstappen and the robot car.
Oh yes,
let's see
it will come. It will come. Yeah,
I can imagine so. Yes. Maybe at Zandvoort, the circuit. Then
could be.
Who knows? We've got several questions from the audience, and if you, viewer, want to ask a question too, you can still do so and put it up in the chat at YouTube or Facebook. And one of the questions is, doesn't considering an economical impact of a product and deciding not to bring it to the market because it will disrupt an existing market hinder innovation?
Yes, if that is the criterion, if it should disrupt or not. So that should never be the leading thought. The leading thought should be, do you solve a problem? Right. Are you giving something to the market where people ask for? And if yes, then you can sell it and you have a good business model. So, and yes, of course, there should be a lot of disruptions. I hope in this region we are working.
There should be.
Yeah, there should be. We are working on the Dutch electrolyzer, which should disrupt the electrolyzer markets. And I hope that in 10 years from now, we can actually make cheap hydrogen from wind and solar energy. And this is just one of the disruptors I would like to mention. And we need those disruptions, definitely. Yeah.
And another question, someone poses, artificial intelligence will be so much more smarter than us on a level that we can't comprehend. We can't prepare for it. Why would we even worry about ethical or economical problems? So let's start with the first part. Artificial intelligence will be so much smarter than us. Do you agree?
Well, yeah, in some sense. I mean, I have here my phone.
Yeah.
And I don't understand what is happening in my phone exactly. And I don't want to understand everything. But as a user, I can make use of it. So I'm happy that there is a lot of intelligence and computing power here, which is far beyond what I can imagine. So I think it's about utilization. How can you use the power of technology in the benefit for you? I don't exactly know how my car works in all details. I don't want to know. I simply use it. I think as engineers and also ICT people and software people, we are at the knobs of what we design. There will never be an AI system which is going to do things which are outside the limits of what we designed it for. You can always design a technical system with limits of operation, always. However, there can be people who take a different viewpoint on what a proper boundary is of certain technology. For instance, gene therapy in China or cloning of humans in China. That is a different norm and value system, but it's still human. Humans are responsible for that. And I think that should be the debate. And for that, I'm also very happy with our bachelor use program in Eindhoven, because all our engineering students, they all are following also, they have to follow a use course on ethics. I think it's crucial to think about ethics, to think now and then about economics, to think about the human impact of the things we do as engineers.
Well, interesting. And I would like to invite Ioulia and Coen back to the stage, the digital stage. Because there's there he is. Hi, Coen and Ioulia. Welcome back. And to think a little bit more about your last remark, Maarten, that it's the boundaries. The human beings, the people, are still the ones who decide what the boundaries are. And who is to decide? Is it really up to engineers what kind of products we develop and where the boundaries are put? I would like to hear a short reaction from each of you.
Well, let me respond first to Maarten's thing about the business case. Business case is clearly important. It's something you must pay for it, so otherwise it is not going to work. But if you look at the history of Philips Lighting Company, that was one example where not only business case was the issue, but also thinking about marketing and thinking about use. So it is not only whether we can pay for it, it is also, so I think that's another very important part of economics. It's how can we make it most useful? So that I think relates to my car example. Not only thinking about that it can drive itself, but also think about how can we then take advantage of that for making the car much more for that new application. I think that was in history the battlefield between the Ford Motor Company and General Motors. General Motors was the first to really understand that the car was a complete revolution. I think that's very important. So it's not only the business case, and that's also the multidisciplinary aspect. So I think it's very important, and TU Eindhoven does that very well, that engineers get a broad education, think about a broad set of issues, because really make an impact on society with your new technology requires you to think, to have a broad view on the thing, and to be able to cooperate with people of other disciplines. I think that's my main remark. I think that's, and other things we agree. We have to discuss about universities and selection, but we do that later.
Okay. Well, Ioulia, what do you think? Who's to decide on the boundaries and what products are brought to the market?
Yes, I think it's a very interesting, also difficult question. So you don't want actually to interfere with the competitive developments. And this would suggest that inventions should just take place and we see where it ends. On the other hand, there is always something like a social benefit and cost. And this is what economics finds very important. So what you do often has impact on other people. We call it external effects. And if, for example, an innovation has external effects on others, then this should be taken into account. So I can't really give an answer that is true always, but I really think that the social effects of innovations, they really need to be taken into account, and case by case basis probably.
And Maarten, is it up to the engineer or rather policy makers to decide on the boundaries?
I think all of them. The same holds a little bit for doctors. You have the discussions now that suppose that the IC capacity is filled up, then doctors have to decide who to help. They are trained to make such decisions, but they don't like it. And we should prevent, from politics, from our measurements, we should prevent that they should take such decisions, because it's not good that they are in such a decision. So I think that for instance, at United Nations level, we are discussing what is allowed or not with drones having AI on board and our combat type of drones. Are they allowed on themselves to decide to attack something? And at United Nations level, we should make rules for that, and then put that down, lower that down into the countries, and then all developers can also match that. So that's one side, and the other side, of course, is that you use your own norms and values, which are part of a society, and that you use your judging capabilities to see what is relevant or not. In addition to what Coen stated about marketing and thinking about the usefulness of developments, I think what is more and more relevant, and I think that in Eindhoven we are especially good in developing this further, I think the engineer of the future should be able to be a systems engineer, to be systems thinking, because all problems are very complex.
No wonder that you are saying so, isn't it?
No, but it's broader than my own systems field.
Okay.
So I think the system engineering and system architecting is key for for our society, for all the complex problems, and more you learn as an engineer that there are many stakeholders, and you are specialist in one or two narrow disciplines, but you should be able to talk and also to listen and to make interpretations and to have impact in solving these complex problems. So systems thinking is, I think, a key which we in the TU Eindhoven could really further develop in our bachelor, master, PDN and PhD programs. Yeah. This is for the supervisory board, Koen.
Yeah, okay. No, I agree. May I give one additional example here? So you see now, which is very often in the news this year, there are a lot of discussion about self-driving cars. Or, should we allow them? Because how should they choose if they have to make a
decision,
emergency stop? Should they kill the one or the other? Which is, in some sense, from my point of view, a ridiculous question, because many humans take those decisions without us ever asking about how they take them. They just do. And in case of cars, we suddenly care about it. But on the other hand, I think it's important to realize that that's the way the human moral ethic works. We don't like machines to take over. And so it's very important that engineers understand that we are crazy humans. Economists learn now behavioral economics, and that's basically, we learn that we are irrational idiots. We all, me, you, Maarten, Ioulia, we're all irrational idiots, and that helps us to understand our behavior. And that's very critical. So I think that's also for engineers.
Well, I think a question that follows up upon this is the following. Can't taking external effects into account hinder innovation to an unacceptable level, especially when the political debate polarizes? Does polarization, well, make it more difficult, perhaps?
I tend to answer no, because I mean, like in the US between Biden and Trump. I mean, in California, although startups, they simply invent and try to solve problems and earn money and go. And they are independent of what politics is doing. And the same holds here in the Netherlands. We are all very eigenwijs, and that's good.
Hard-headed.
So we try to solve problems, and we try to have fun in our work, and we progress. And we try to do this that consciously with some business or marketing, whatever, in our heads. And ethics, but I don't think that political debates really influence too much our progress. That would be my first statement. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe that's what economists can contribute to this debate, and that is competition. Basically, your business case, in that sense, I fully agree to Maarten. Your business case depends to a large extent on whether your customers want to buy it, yes or no. So it is not the politicians who decide. It's not the mankind in the form of a politician, but mankind in the form of a customer who decides whether certain new technologies will make a breakthrough, yes or no. Maybe that's a bit too simple. But as a basic mechanism also in disruptions, whether a disruption is successful or not, it's partly internal politics of Shell, whether they allow new green energy concepts. But the main thing is whether the customers like it, yes or no. And so in California, Maarten is fully right. All those garage, they're all people working with new inventions, new ideas, and it's incredible what's happening over there. And the world at large is benefiting from that.
And I guess if a customer will like something if it solves a problem, as Maarten says. If it doesn't solve a problem, the customer won't buy it.
Yeah.
Right. And another question then. When a university launches startups, is that not abuse of public funding and a worse plan than having actual businesses do that? So we noticed that Ioulia has some trouble with the sound. So I hope can you give a thumb up if you understood the question? Then the floor is yours at first. Well,
Yes, well, thank you very much. I have here problems with the connection, so
okay. We're going to try to fix
yes,
it.
maybe Lisa, it's a better idea if you can transfer the question to somebody else, because I really have problems with the connection. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Will do. No,
Well,
it's no
maybe
problem.
I can start then, Lisa. I think the third role of university next to education and research is valorization. That means that you actually bring knowledge to the market, not only in the form of young people who are well educated, but also in the form of ideas and also startups. I think it's a very healthy thought, and also for the public funding, it's really good. I think that Stanford gets about 1 billion a year from alumni who became very rich with their ideas. And of course, if the idea is originated from research at the university, there is always a payback mechanism, a part of the shares, or what I prefer personally is a license agreement that if you are successful with the startups pay simply money back, and then everybody's happy. So I think it's even more important, and it's a little bit old thinking to state that the university should be totally disconnected from any value chain thereafter. And especially beta universities, so technical universities are really linked and coupled to industry, which is a very good thing. Although, having said that, of course, we should stay independent. If we do research, we should do completely free research in the sense that what we find, we should be able to publish that, but that's of course our core business and our ethics. So for me, it's that's my answer to the question. Yeah.
Lisa, maybe I can ask you something, because this is a field where economics can help a lot. So in economics, we have the concept of a public good. That's basically a good that we provide, where it's non-rival, we call it. So if you use it, that doesn't prohibit anybody else to use it. That's the first thing, non-rival. And the other thing is that non-exclusive. It's very difficult for me to exclude you from using it. And so what is typical for university, they make knowledge. That's their contribution. That's a public good. Because if I have a bright idea, probably I'm not sure, but maybe I have a bright idea.
Let's say.
But if you use, there's no reason for Maarten not to use it. And it is very difficult even for me to avoid that you are going to use it, because as soon as I've told it to Maarten might tell it to you, and you can use it. So that is the reason why universities usually use public funding, because it's very difficult to send a bill for that. Because if I send a bill to you, you sell it to Maarten, I can never send a bill to Maarten. So that's the reason why we have universities as being publicly funded. And our ethics as professors, as scientists, is that we provide new ideas for the society as large. And so I very much line up to Maarten. We should use it and try to get one step further. So that's what technical universities do. Not only laar pour laar, but also apply it. But then it should be available for everybody. That's our license why we get money from the government. And we should use that in that way. Because I think it's very obvious. So I fully line up with Maarten's answer.
All right. Ioulia has returned on full strength.
Indeed.
And I'll give you this another statement to which you can answer. There's no future in cities. I have the impression that you are not on the same side, the three of you. So what would your reaction be to that statement, Ioulia?
Yes, there is a lot of discussion about that. So the death of distance and cities becoming obsolete. And we have seen in the previous decades that it goes up and down. So cities lose population, they have urban crisis, and then cities gain population back again, they gain their strength back. So personally, I wouldn't really expect cities to disappear. We have had them for so many centuries, and there are good reasons why people want to be together. So there are good reasons why clustering is also bad. So you have agglomeration and congestion effects, and it could be that congestion effects are now getting stronger, and that would probably maybe lead to another urban crisis, but I would not expect that this is the end of the cities. I think it's more a continuous process which will bring cities back at some moment.
I see Maarten and Koen slightly nodding.
I fully agree.
You fully agree? And how about you, Maarten?
I know that cities have gone down and gone up. So look at my own city. I live in Amsterdam. Amsterdam lost 25% of the population between 1960 and 1980. So it was really, I lived in Amsterdam in 85. It was really a disastrous city. Everything was collapsing. And look now, everything is made of gold these days. So cities go up and go down. That will continue. For sure, there will also be a downfall again in Amsterdam. And maybe a new peak afterwards. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that
I can imagine there is some metrics whereby the whole of the Netherlands would be seen as one city by foreign people, because our distances are so close. Having said that, I think it might be true, maybe, that the COVID crisis forces us a little bit stronger to, say, work 50% at home for the future. I don't know if it will last, but assume that people will work more at home. Then I can imagine that the living environment will become more relevant. So I can imagine that the next 2 decades or so, there will be some sort of motion from out the city, simply because people want to live a little bit more with a little bit more space. Could be. Could be.
All right. So we're.
But that's still part of the up and down. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. We are nearing the end of this session. It's almost 9:30. What advice would you give to the students watching, who are mainly technology students? Not all, but a large part of them. What is their advice for the near future? Let's make it small. And Koen and Maarten, I give you the opportunity to think about it a little bit. And I've got a question for Ioulia, because Ioulia, you already said we've got courses people can follow. If there are people who are thinking, oh, I want to know more about this, where can they go to? Can they turn to you?
Yeah, so that was a very good question indeed. We started talking about, I do give a course on urban economics and econometrics, and I was putting it online in this last quartile, and then thinking, is there a book which students who don't like to listen to the lectures can read? And that was very difficult. And why? Well, actually, I fully believe that engineers learn by doing. And so this is the same with economics. And that means that for engineers, it's very important to do active learning. So to work themselves with the data, to read themselves the articles, good research that, for example, study how much people value solar panels. So do market research into a new technology, find out how much people want to pay for that. This is very important for an engineer as well. And for that reason, I think that it's a good idea to follow a course, and a course which really gives you hands-on skills in applying econometrics and economics to real data. Well, my course is one of these, but this is, of course, not the only one. But I think this is the best way for engineers to learn a new subject, which is more or less far from their regular daily life.
Okay, thank you. So do market research, get your hands dirty in economics.
Send me an email and I can give you the code of the course.
Ah, that's good. Talking about code, right after this session ends, the BA students can find a link to their use registration in the chat in YouTube. And so don't forget to get your student ID number and register, because otherwise we don't know that you followed this Studium Generale. Koen, what's your advice for the viewers?
Well, let's come back to Maarten's remarks. So Maarten and I will have a little discussion afterwards on whether selection is needed, yes or no. But I think that's not a real issue for you. You are now at the Technical University in Eindhoven, and that's a great benefit for you. This is a great university, and Maarten is fully right. This university stands out by having its close cooperation with private enterprise, and that helps everybody. and it provides challenges to you, challenges that help solving societal problems. And so what I think society may expect from you is that you do the best you can. So I think science is a form of sport. And we play all kinds of sports in the Netherlands. There are 1 million people who play soccer. But we're also very enthusiastic when the orange team wins whatever against Germany, to give the classic example. And so we both like what we call broad sport and excellent sport. And you are at an excellent university, so I think what you should do is do excellent work. Really spend your time, really use the opportunity that you have got by entering this university, by having the opportunity to do a project with Maarten. Do it and make the best of it. I think that's very important.
All right, Maarten, finally.
It's very simple. I always say, don't bother about the future, where you're going to work, whatever. Just try to enjoy what you do. Make the choices based on the courses you like most. Don't bother if it's useful or not for the future. If you do the things you like most, you will become top. And simply stick to that.
Have fun.
Yes.
All right. Well, I want to thank you all, Coen Teulings, Maarten Steinbuch, and Ioulia Ossokina. And I want to thank the viewer. And I want to end with returning to the Mentimeter question that we asked you in the beginning, which was, knowing about economics is essential for a successful career in tech. Did you, viewers, change your mind while listening to the speakers here? And I can tell you that in the beginning, it was about 1 to 3. I see about 20 people disagreed and 60 people agreed. So let's see how you think about that now. Did this session change your mind, or did it not? I have the impression that more people are agreeing now, relatively more people. And still votes are coming in. It was an interesting evening, and I hope that you all enjoyed it and that you, remember well the advice that the speakers gave to you. Get your hands dirty, do some market research, go do economics, surround yourself with excellent people, find an excellent company to work at, use the opportunities that the TUE is offering you, and have fun. And keep that in mind always, I would say. So if we look at the Mentimeter outcome, then it's there may be a little bit more people disagreeing now than at first. So maybe the agreeing part of the audience is refraining from voting now. Well, that's no problem. It was a pleasure being your host, and I hope you enjoyed this session. Once again, Maarten, Coen, and Ioulia, thank you very much. And to everyone, have a safe trip to your living room, as you are already home. And see you next time at Studium Generale at the TUE. Good evening.